Well, hello! Thank you for watching our video about what's going on in 2022. So this video is purely going to be about what is Crowdrender doing in 2022. What features are we building? What bugs are we fixing? What is going on? So that's kind of the purpose of it. Before I get to that though, huge thanks to Mwave Australia, who will have a link in the description below to their store, because they have basically allowed us to become an affiliate and are effectively sponsoring our channel now because they've let us keep this PC and the other bits of equipment that allow us to actually do development, and also really helps for making videos like this because we can actually edit stuff and it doesn't actually take the entire lifetime of the universe to finally encode everything and get it up to YouTube. So thanks to them for that. There are links now to their store both in this video and some others, and if you use those links and buy something in the store, then we get an itsy bit of money from that, and that really helps us. So yay, a new way to support what we're doing. So that's pretty cool. Next, okay, so I'm literally just going to read out all of the stuff that we'll be doing this year. So I have a list in front of me, a piece of paper that's just to help me not wander off and ramble, which I am known for doing. I apologize if you're new to this channel. I do have a tendency to talk quite a bit. So I'm going to try and just get on with it. All right, so we've got a few things, big headings on this list. We're going to deal with poor performance, we're going to deal with glitching, and we're going to deal with missing features. And you should also know that we are completely rebuilding the add-on from scratch this year. If you don't know that, now you do. I just told you, so good. Hopefully that should give you some kind of context for what's going on. That's actually required because we have a lot of stuff on this list which we can't really do without rebuilding and redesigning everything. Okay, so first up, poor performance. A lot of people have told me that Crowdrender isn't faster for them out of the box, and this is 100% true, and we are going to address it. And it's a bit of a bummer because, you know, being fast is exactly the point of the software. So if it doesn't do that, then I can't really blame you for saying, hey, it doesn't actually fulfill its intended purpose, which is speeding up rendering. So what are we doing about that? First, let me tell you, why does this happen? One of the probably poorer design choices with Crowdrender was to go with tile splitting, because that's what was around when we first designed it, probably way back in 2016. Tile splitting, unfortunately for us, has this disadvantage of we have to estimate exactly how much work to give to each computer for tile splitting to be worth it, in order for it to actually be quicker. Now, we could just make lots and lots of smaller tiles, all the same size, like you see Cycles does, but unfortunately each time we want to render a new part of the image, we have to open a whole new process and synchronize the render kernel again, which means basically all the stuff that happens before you see pixels being drawn, that's called synchronization. That has to be done for each tile for us. So we have to, in order to be quicker, we've got to hopefully just render the entire amount of the screen that that computer is capable of doing and being quick in one hit. So we've got to estimate that. That means that if a computer isn't, how do I put this? If you haven't rendered much with those computers with that scene, then our algorithm, which is supposed to guess how much of the screen to give to each computer, has no idea what it's doing, usually gives the wrong amount, and that ends up with one machine finishing faster than the other, and the other one just sitting there doing nothing, and then it's slower. You've probably witnessed this yourself, so if you're feeling the pain of having used our software and it not actually benefiting you for performance reasons, good news, this is what we're doing about it. So first of all, for animation renders, we're going to use frame splitting. What does frame splitting mean? It simply means, imagine having a deck of cards. Each card is a frame, and instead of each card being split into tiles and being worked on, each computer just comes and gets one frame from the stack and goes and works on it, and brings back the results when it is done. That means that, well, firstly, it's going to be a lot quicker because the overhead of opening the computer and synchronizing Cycles is actually distributed amongst all the computers. So it gets rid of that overhead. The second is, as soon as a machine is finished with an entire frame, it comes and gets another one straight away. So there's no machines waiting for stuff anymore, unless everything's been done and we're just waiting for the last computer to finish the last tile. So it is way more efficient for animation renders. However, for everyone who is doing single frame work, so you might be in architectural visualization, or you might be doing billboard work for commercial stuff, good news. We are looking at doing what's called sample splitting. Sample splitting used to be in Cycles. It got deprecated when Cycles X came along, and then we patched Blender with a little bit of funding from you guys, so thank you, our development fund. If you want to check that out, there's a link in the description below to go check it out. That money from our development fund we put towards a really nice guy from Ukraine, and I really feel sorry for everyone in Ukraine who's having to deal with the bullshit now, which is mostly, I don't know. Anyway, won't go there. But he's a really cool guy, and we've been really stoked to be able to work with him and to be able to pay him and give him a little bit of extra spending money. And he's basically helped us patch Blender, so now Blender with Cycles X has sample splitting. Now, what is sample splitting? It's the same kind of deal with frame splitting, you know, the deck of cards analogy, except a single frame, let's just say, may have, let's just say you go nuts and you give that single frame 1,000 samples. Rather than giving 1,000 samples just to one computer, we've got a new technique where we can give, let's just say, if you had two machines, you give 500 samples to one computer and 500 samples to another, and then we've got a way of squishing it all back together into one single image with all of the samples in the right spot so that it actually results in a less noisier image. Pretty cool. And it means that the entire image is done by each machine, but they do different samples of the sequence, because there's a sequence of samples. It's just like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to 1,000. So effectively that means that we can distribute a single frame render, make it faster without needing to estimate how big the tiles should be. Because we can break up, let's just say, 1,000 samples, instead of breaking it up into 500 and giving it to two computers, we can break it up into, let's just say, 100, and the computers grab 100, render them, give the image, and then they go and grab the next 100. And then it's very similar to animation rendering and frame splitting, which means very efficient. And we've also got some other plans in the works to deal with the fact that, yes, it would suck to have to reload the scene and resynchronize it for every sample range, but we have got some special news coming about another patch that we've been doing. So that's going to be really cool. So that's a couple of things that are happening. UI lag is another performance issue that people have talked about, and it's a really weird one because we don't seem to see it as much in our lab testing, but we have noticed it. We can actually see it. It's just not as show-stopping as some of you guys have experienced. So yes, we're going to fix UI lag. UI lag is being dealt with because we're redoing the entire add-on. You might remember I said that at the beginning. Yes, we are. So the entire add-on is being redesigned, and one of the big things that we're able to do with this redesign is introduce something called asynchronous programming. And what that means is that we can do stuff which can pause while Blender goes and redraws the whole UI, which effectively means that if we're doing something that might take a while, rather than doing that thing which takes a very, very long time and stops the UI from being drawn for too long, so you get noticeable stuttering or even freezing, it would always exit out to redraw the UI very frequently, which means you shouldn't see stuttering or slowdown in the UI, because our stuff would be just pausing frequently to let the UI get redrawn. That's kind of what asynchronous programming means. Unfortunately, we can't really backport that or work it into the current add-on. It's just too much work. It's enough work that you may as well just redo the whole add-on. And that's just one reason why we're redesigning it. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is glitching. So I've got a few things here on my list. These are some of the things that you guys have noticed and told us about. So connecting doesn't work. Fine. We've solved that by getting rid of connecting. Not even kidding. We have literally decided we are going to remove the job of connecting from you and make it automatic, because we can do that. Why not? Let's do it. So what you will have instead is, rather than a little link that says, hey, I want to connect to this node, connection will happen all the time automatically. As soon as computers start up and the add-on is started, then the computers will just automatically link to each other. The only decision you have to make then is, do you want to actually synchronize the project you've got open to all those computers? Because that implies you're sending potentially all of your data for that particular scene that's in the file to those computers. And you might want to not want to do that. If it's like 100 gigs, you might want to say, actually, I was just opening this scene because I wanted to get something from it and do something else. You might not actually have the intention of synchronizing it for rendering. So rather than a connect symbol, you might have a checkbox which says, yes, I actually want this project to be synchronized to all my computers. Hopefully that sounds fair enough. If it doesn't make any sense, please comment below. I'll try and do my best to explain it better with hopefully not many words. Okay, missing assets and textures. Now this is a very interesting one. You've probably seen a few videos, like I'll have a card popping up somewhere around here about now for the videos that I've done to try and explain different methods that you can use to make sure if you've got external assets which are not baked or packed into your blend file, such as textures, HDRIs, simulation caches, other models and blend file assets that you didn't actually build in that scene but you've got them in other files, all of that stuff, if it's not in the blend file, how do you render with it? Now, we don't plan to have something that just automatically takes care of all this for you. And the reason we don't want to automatically do it is because sometimes you guys are on the ball and you've already set up your own NAS, or you're using Dropbox, or you've got some shared system where all of the assets that are external to your project sit on a shared folder on the network, which is smart, and this is what you probably should do. That way, when all of the nodes want to render, they actually go to the shared location and pull everything across the network, and they have access to all those assets at render time. This is a really smart thing to do, and I'm not going to labor too much on it. Just rest assured there are videos and links in the description as well that will cover this in more detail, and we even go into it in our documentation, so there'll be a link to that as well. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then I don't know, feel free to either go look at those resources, or skip this section. But here's what we're going to do. We are going to warn you ahead of time when a project synchronizes. Before it gets anywhere near to being rendered, or you pressing the render button, we'll warn you if that particular computer in your list of nodes is missing some assets. And the reason we warn you and don't just automatically do it is because if you've gone to the trouble of setting up a NAS and it's mapped under, let's just say, the drive letter of, let's just use N for example for NAS. So each of your computers might be on Windows and has the drive letter N for the NAS drive on the network. If someone goes and changes that drive letter on the computer, let's just say it's a new computer even that you bring in which doesn't know this, when you connect to that machine, if Crowdrender just automatically sent all the files there, number one, disk space is an issue because you might not have enough disk space, or you might not be expecting to transmit that much data over the network, and it could slow things down or cause issues around, just bandwidth being used up. And the second one is if, for example, if Crowdrender did this automatically and you weren't aware it was doing that, then you might think, oh great, the NAS is working because all of the assets are being rendered properly. But then you go back and you make a change to something, and that change only applies to some of the computers now because the changed asset which lives on the NAS has not been recopied to that other computer. So that's one of the big reasons why we're not just going to have this automatic system that's going to override your choices and how you've set things up, because we don't want to do that. We don't want to make decisions for you. Okay, next, sync fail. There's two things which are coming for sync failures. Number one, we're pretty much going to ignore them. Well, in terms of, I don't want to be getting smart with you guys, sorry. When I say we're going to ignore them, there's another version of software coming out pretty soon. It's not the new one, it's just an update to the current system. We're not going to prevent a computer from rendering anymore if it's in the sync fail condition, because we realized there are add-ons and other stuff that can cause a sync fail which has nothing to do with your data. And it's really, really frustrating if you see that happen and you still can't get it to render, and the only option you've got to fix that is to go and install the same add-on on every single machine. So we're just going to stop for now. There is a brand new system coming which will hopefully deal with this far more gracefully. So I'm going to talk about that in a sec, but you should know that in maybe a couple of weeks time from this video, maybe even shorter, you should have, if you're subscribed to our development fund, a copy of 043 which no longer stops you from rendering if the node has recognized it's not synchronized and has said sync fail. This is now just going to be a warning. It's going to say, hey, we've detected something isn't right, and here's a list of what's not right. If you don't care about what's on that list, then you just go right ahead and render. It'll still work. Hopefully that helps. Okay, so the next thing with sync failure is, well, basically we redesigned the whole thing. So Jeremy is working super hard on a system that's been designed from the ground up. And that system's getting pretty close to being finished. Middle of the year is looking pretty possible. And then we're going to see how it fits into whether it goes into the current add-on or whether it goes into the brand new one. It'd be much better to go into the brand new one, to be honest. So we may delay its actual delivery to you just so that it can come in an add-on which can take advantage of it. Okay, renders can stop. That sucks, and we're sorry if that has happened to you. It is not our intention to stop you from rendering. However, the current system does have some protections in place for stopping a render where there's a crash or an error on a node, but it is not perfect, and there is a good chance that if a node fails at exactly the right moment, that it could stop the entire render, and we've seen this happen. That's not going to happen anymore. Mainly because the two new methods of rendering which I mentioned previously, the two new modes I should say, which is frame splitting and sample splitting, don't suffer from the problem of everyone on the same frame has to finish. They'll be designed around this whole idea of, as long as there's just one computer left taking from that pile of tasks, the entire job should get done. So it's going to be far more robust to an individual node crashing. Finally, phantom nodes and your node list. So a few people have complained about the fact that occasionally they don't seem to have control over the nodes that they see in the node list. So here's an image of the node list, and here's an image of all my nodes, and you can see there's some duplicates and other things which if you actually delete them, sometimes they don't go away. So a couple of things are going to happen. Number one, you'll have complete control over which nodes actually are in this list, because this is populated on my account. Sorry, this is populated on my computer by using my cloud account. So I've logged this machine into my cloud account, and all of these ones that you see here in gray, they're actually coming from our servers, because I've logged those computers you can see in gray into my cloud account, and they've all registered themselves to my account. So long story short, we're basically going to give you access to that list so you can actually edit it. So if you don't want to see a node in there anymore, you can just remove it. Bear in mind that each time you log one of these machines in, it's going to just repopulate itself. So if you don't want that to happen, don't log it in. The other thing that's going to happen is, because we're going to be automatically connecting things now, what you should see in the list in the new add-on is going to be representative of what's actually available to you, so what you can actually connect to, mostly on the local network, and then I'm going to talk a bit about remote stuff in a second. So the node list is hopefully going to become far more intuitive, because it's going to be more aligned to the principle of what you see is what you get. So what nodes you can see are what nodes you're already connected to and can use, if that makes sense. Okay, so new stuff. We've been talking for a while now about things like remote access and peer-to-peer sharing. In fact, the whole idea of Crowdrender comes from basically the mushing together of crowd and render, because we want the crowd to be able to pool its resources together to be able to render. That means you sharing computers with your friends, teaming up. It also means being able to access computers from your office or your home anywhere you are, just via a laptop, so you can do fast rendering no matter where you are. And it also includes the cloud as well. So basically the whole push of Crowdrender, if you think about where we're going in a couple of years' time, is you should be able to access pretty much any machine anywhere on Earth through our platform, so long as you've got permission to use it, whether it's from a friend or whether you've got an account with any of the major cloud providers like Azure, Google, or whatnot. Or if you have a render credit with us, you can spend that across the people who we're partnered with, which is BlenderGrid at the moment, which is really nice. So that's the vision of where we're going to. And yes, there's a few features in there. There's obviously the remote access. That's something more and more people seem to want because of the pandemic. Peer-to-peer sharing, which allows you to team up with buddies. And obviously the cloud, which I've mentioned. All of that is resting on the new stuff we're building this year, which is basically a really robust system for connecting computers across different networks. Now, some of you might know this as Cress. Here you go. Here's our webpage for Cress. We made a big song and dance about the fact we've applied for an Epic grant, and I would have loved to have said, hey, we've got the grant, but that's not happened. Unfortunately, they wrote back to us and said no. But not to be deterred, we are going to push ahead anyway. And what we're doing about this is we're changing our development fund. So we're changing our campaign, we're changing our subscriptions, And we're changing our totals as well, because we were expecting, you know, quite a decent amount of money to be able to build this, because we applied for a grant that would cover everything, including the rebuild and redesign that we're doing right now before Cress. So you're going to see some changes on our website for sure. And we're pretty hopeful that the community is going to help us fund this, because it's really going to help you guys. Certainly, we've been talking to a lot of you. A lot of you seem very excited about this stuff. So that's what's going to happen. Now, don't worry, if you're currently subscribed at any of the tiers on the current campaign, you'll get to keep that for the rest of your days, as long as you don't unsubscribe. Because unfortunately, if you unsubscribe, the only thing that's going to be there when you come back, if you come back, will be the new stuff. So we're not changing anything just yet. There'll be another video and some more announcements and a date about when we'll bring in the new things. Like that's the new subscriptions, the new tiers, all the rest of it. That is coming. And the reason it's coming is, well, you know, I just told you, you know, we were hoping to get a massive cash injection from Epic Mega Games, and they decided not to give it to us, which is fine. I mean, I'm sure they've got way more awesome stuff that was coming anyway. But that's pretty much it, guys. That's what 2022 is going to look like. It's going to look like us still doing the good work you've known us for, still making this add-on better. There's going to be a few more patch updates, I think, to the current system, but mostly now we're spending our time on the new system. There's new code already working. I'm going to be doing hopefully a lot more video content, maybe some live streams, just taking you through what's happening every time we add something to it, make it do something new, just so you can actually get a view of what's happening, because a lot of it is behind the scenes. Some of it is pretty boring though. It's just like automated tests that work. I'm going to try and just filter that out and give you guys the good stuff. So thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this video. Please do like, share, subscribe, and do all that good stuff. But the most important thing is, if you've got this far, you're obviously pretty keen to support us, or at least listen to us. So I would suggest download the current version, tell us what you think, give us feedback, because this list, which I got in my hand, was basically built on us talking to you guys. I would like to talk to you as well. If you want to spend 45 minutes with me on a Zoom call, happy to do that. Otherwise, take care, and we'll see you around real soon. And stay tuned for, you know, we've got a new release coming out, 043, and there's going to be a few changes around the crowdfunding / development fund as well. So make sure you are well informed about that, because you don't want to miss out what's happening. All right, ciao, all the best.